False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fanside.com. As you can see, I am once again flying solo like a cup on account of Cody Williams, content director at fanside.com. He needs a new laptop. So with the holiday tomorrow or today, he'll be getting his on Friday. So he'll be on the Monday episode and we'll be doing some Toto then. But I've got an exciting show for you guys today. Definitely some stuff centered around the Heisman Trophy, maybe some stuff that Bret Bielema talked about. Also, a very interesting article that Chris Lowe wrote for ESPN. But, let's not dilly-dally around here. We obviously false started. Here's our first 15 today with some Big Ten energy. Bret Bielema, Illinois head coach, wants all the conferences to play 9 games, especially the SEC. So here's basically what he told or what he said at like the at Illini night at Wrigley Field, on Tuesday. He says, I don't think there's any way we can do a 16-team playoff if they're not at 9. He was saying that he wants the SEC to be at 9 games. And also probably saying that the ACC needs to be at 9 games as well. And he added this. He says, we voted unanimously as Big Ten coaches to stay at 9 league games and actually maybe have an SEC challenge. I was told that they voted unanimously to stay at 8 and not play the Big Ten. But then again, some people pop off and say what they want to say because they wanted to look a certain way. This is in line with what Brian Kelly was supposedly saying, like, hey, let's play the Big Ten SEC challenge. And Bielema, who's coached at Arkansas before, says, I get it, but I think until you get to 9 for everybody, I just don't think it could work. Very interesting from Bret Bielema here with regards to the college football playoff going to 16 games. I hate to break it to you, Brett. It's going to 16 games no matter what you say, regardless of if the SEC or the ACC gets to what 9 conference games or not. It's going to happen. The money's too good. They're not going to go from 12 to 14. It's going to go from 12 to 16. And they're going to do it, and they're going to have some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? There's going to be some sort of it's late, but some sort of thing in writing saying that we're legislation that we're going to go from 12 to 16 teams because there's more money to be had. There's more first round games to be had. But I do think it's good though with what Bielema was saying at Illini night at Wrigley Field. His argument is that he wants for what is best for the league, not necessarily what's best for Illinois. And what you have to remember is this is his 3rd time around in the Big Ten. I mean, he had been the head coach at Wisconsin back when the league was kind of down, and he played his college football at Iowa for the legendary Hayden Fry. So what may have been the best for Iowa in the very early 90s to what was best for Wisconsin in the 2000s to what's best for Illinois in the 2020s. I mean, it's all different, but I think it's interesting that he's kind of become an elder statesman. He's become a very well-respected person in the profession because he's been around the block. He's seen a lot of different things, and I think it's also he was also. Let me backtrack for a second, real quick. He is not in favor of 4 automatic qualifying bids in the Big Ten. Ryan Day is in favor of that, but he's at Ohio State. Again, that's the wrong messenger for it. And Cody and I have talked about this on the show about why that's not a good idea and why it can't come from Ryan Day. If it's coming from somebody else, pretty much not James Franklin, Dan Lanning, Lincoln Riley. If it's coming from Kirk Ferentz, okay, that's in the vein. If it came from Bret Bielema, okay, that might make a little more sense, but it's not. It's absolutely and clearly not. I think what's going to happen is the SEC is probably more inclined to go to 9 conference games than you would think, but they got to get some sort of clarity from the playoff selection committee. If they're going to do 9 games and get punished for it, then why cater to it? I think that's the other thing that too, and I've talked about this on the show before. The Big Ten has a very, very weak middle class. There's no team in the middle of the Big Ten that's going to beat anybody in the upper level of the Big Ten with any regularity, and that's why you have such a bureaucracy at the top with Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon right now, and you've got other teams that normally aren't there, like Illinois and Indiana, trying to fight their way up, while Michigan's still trying to figure it out with the new head coach. USC is down. Iowa doesn't quite ever get there. But I think it's interesting that Bielema has been he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth here a little bit. Like he has been SEC coach. He knows how difficult that league is, and he knows that he's in the Big Ten. He's probably got, he's got Big Ten energy coursing through his veins. Um, but like I don't know, he's coaching the NFL too. So, maybe what's best for the Big Ten may not be the best for college football, but I think he's looking at it more in terms of like what's best for the Big Ten versus what's best for Illinois. And I think when you're like looking at it from a larger perspective outside of just your own school, I can certainly get behind that because you're looking at the sport in a bigger lens. It may not be the lens that we want people to look through, but it's a lens that I think we can respect and be appreciative of. But again, it's kind of a relatively slow part of the news cycle, but I guess like the last two things I'll say about this is one, I think it's that maybe we overlook the fact that Bielema's weight carries, no pun intended, but like his voice carries clout. Like he's been around for a while. He's seen some things. So what he's experienced throughout his football life and his football journey matters. And I also think it's interesting that Illinois is a team that I think could make the playoff this year. This is a team that I'm very high on. I would probably have them pegged fifth in the Big Ten this year beyond, the big three of Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, whatever order you want. Probably not Oregon at one, but like you get what I'm saying. Probably not Ohio State at three. Probably not Penn State either. So Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. Indiana probably at four, then Illinois at five. And you're looking at them in the same sort of range with Michigan, Iowa, USC if you're a homer. But like the fact that like he's not pounding the table for something that's just incredibly pro Illinois on a Illini night at Wrigley Field, I think speaks volumes. Again, I think everybody in their power is trying to get this right, but there's just a few details that need to be hammered out. And I hope that the SEC and the Big Ten realize that they are the brokers of power here, and that they look out for the health of the sport as opposed to it being strictly a game of risk where they're just trying to conquer territory. But then again, don't expect a scorpion that's on your back not to sting you. That's what it is. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about Big Ten energy and Bret Bielema. Really excited for the Illini season. I thought he brought some very interesting things to the table here. So let's move on to our next topic here with some live from Eric Crouch's couch. I wrote two different posts about this for fanside.com, and we'll have other ones that are coming out. I wrote about this with regards to the SEC and the group of five. So like your Heisman Trophy sleepers. So let me define a sleeper real quick. I think really anybody in the group of five is a sleeper because like nobody's really expected to win it. And as far as the SEC is concerned, like Lenore Sellers at South Carolina, Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, those aren't sleepers. Like those are favorites. Arch Manning at Texas. But there's a guy who's on a team that could conceivably do it, like DJ Lagway at Florida, Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, players of that note. Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. Like you're too good. You're too high profile to really be a sleeper. So I listed a sleeper for all 16 SEC teams. And I listed a sleeper for for 10 group of five teams. So I'm going to start with the SEC real quick, just to kind of set the tone for what we're kind of doing here. So you obviously can check this out on fanside.com. I'll list who I have for all 16, and then I'll probably mention a few favorites. I think that's the way I want to go. For Alabama, I've got quarterback Ty Simpson. For Arkansas, I've got quarterback Taylor Green. Auburn, I've got wide receiver Cam Coleman. Florida, I've got wide receiver Eugene Wilson the third. Georgia, I've got running back Nate Frazier. Kentucky, I've quarterback Zach Calzada. LSU, I've got wide receiver Barry Brown. Mississippi State, I've got quarterback Blake Shapen. Missouri, I've got quarterback Bo Pribula. I always struggle saying his name. At Oklahoma, I've got wide receiver Deion Burks. At Ole Miss, I've got linebacker Suntarine Perkins. Got to learn how to pronounce his first name. South Carolina, I've got edge rusher Dylan Stewart. Tennessee, I've got quarterback Joey Aguilar. Texas, I've got running back Trey Wisner. For Texas A&M, I've got Casey or Kevin Concepcion. And at Vanderbilt, I've got Diego Pavia. So let's start with Diego Pavia. He's listed at, I believe, plus 1,500 odds to win the Heisman. And look, do I think he's going to do it? No, but he's going to be a sixth-year player. He's played junior college. He's played at New Mexico State. He played at Vanderbilt last year. All hail the live dog, Diego Pavia. But I think if Vanderbilt like does very well with its schedule and they go like 9-3, you're looking at something like an RG3 Heisman. We're like, oh my God, look at what this guy's doing at a school that doesn't win big. And I think the other thing that's important to know with all these SEC sleepers, if you will, is like you're not a sleeper very long. Like if you win 9 games and you're playing at a high level and you're putting up numbers, stats, and have a few upsets there, like you're gonna be, maybe possibly in Heisman contention. And I just think Pavia kind of embodies a little bit what the Heisman's about. Like, the unconventional road, a guy who's just a really good college player. I don't know what his pro aspirations are. Clearly they do exist, but it's it's kind of 1 year at a time. I mean, if Stetson Bennett could do it, why not him? So I'm very, very bullish on Pavia. Probably touch on three more, then I'll get to the group of five ones. Let's touch on which one did I find fascinating? Let's go with Georgia running back Nate Frazier. So again, this is my favorite team. This is my alma mater. Nate Frazier is the sleeper because Gunnar Stockton would be the favorite from Georgia. Other guys that were listed were Zachariah Branch, the transfer wide receiver from USC, and then Noah Thomas, the A&M transfer wide receiver as well. Look, when it comes to Nate Frazier, when he had the ball in his hands, he was electrifying. He primarily backed up Trevor Etienne last year. He looked great versus Clemson when Etienne got hurt. And but Kirby Smart didn't always put him out there because a freshman's got to learn how to block when you're out there. So you're not really giving away like, oh, he's out there, he's going to get the ball and what have you. But what I was trying to get through in this article is every time that Georgia has like a running back like this, like they're Heisman, contender at the start of the year. It remains to be seen if they ultimately get there. But like, when you got a running back like Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, no Sean Moreno, like those are probably the three best. I mean, Sony Michelle too, if you want to make it four. Since I've been following the sport really closely, I've been a fan of Georgia. I don't even think James Cook was this when he was here. A very, very good player, but like not quite this. But when you have a running back who just kind of changes the calculus at Georgia, you get kind of elevated doing that. So I'm very bullish on Nate Frazier. If I'm going to go with two more guys here, let's go with Arkansas quarterback Taylor Green. I like this one because look, there's not a lot going for Arkansas this year. It kind of seems as though the writing's on the wall for Sam Pittman as head coach. Like if they don't win like 7 or 8 games, he's going to be let go. He's not really recruiting along the offensive line as he should. But Taylor Green, the former Boise State transfer, like if he comes in here and he hits the ground running and helps make up the difference, at a place like Arkansas, and they do more than just upset Tennessee like they did a year ago. Yeah, and keep like Pittman's job security going. Yeah, I think Taylor Green's the type of player that like, when Arkansas has a player like this, you take notice. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to be on the same level as like Darren McFadden because nobody else is, but like he could make us like he could make us really care and want to watch Arkansas football really closely again. So very bullish on him. And then on the last guy I'll probably touch on is Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Look, I think he doesn't have quite the Heisman odds that wide receiver Ryan Williams does, but like he is the favorite to win, the starting quarterback job. Ryan Grubb, the new OC, has been speaking very, very highly of Simpson. More so than Alex Mack and Keelan Russell, who I think both are listed as well. Maybe Mack for sure. I'm not so sure with Russell. Again, these odds are all from FanDuel Sportsbook. But like Simpson's been around the block. He's a former 5-star. His dad's a coach at UT Martin and everything like that. But I think he could kind of have like a Mac Jones type of season where like he's been around for a while. We finally give him the keys to the car. He knows how to keep the car on the road and deliver, a bunch of wins for Alabama. And I think if Alabama goes 10-2 and makes the playoff and he puts up some numbers, I mean, yeah, I think he'll be in conversation there. So yeah, of the four that I listed, I like Ty Simpson at Alabama, Taylor Green at Arkansas, Nate Frazier at Georgia, and Diego Pavia out of Vanderbilt. And again, there's other guys on here. Definitely check out this article, but those are ones that I kind of explaining my reasoning there. Let's move on to the group of five ones. Again, I wrote about this today, the 10 biggest sleepers to do it. So like again, there was only three guys that I noticed that were listed. Let's go, and I'll talk about each of them. Boise State quarterback, Maddox Madsen. Who else was it? Navy midshipman quarterback Blake Horvath, And Oregon State Beavers quarterback Blake Murphy. Yes, I know Oregon State's not really group of five, but they're not really power four. They're somewhere in between. I just threw them in here. And I'll touch on each of them and I'll list out the other guys who I've got on here. So besides okay, Boise State quarterback Maddox Madsen, James Madison running back George Pettaway, Memphis running back Greg DeRosier, Miami quarterback DeQuan Finn. Let's see who else. Oregon State. Oh, yeah. Navy Midshipman quarterback Blake Horvath. Oregon State quarterback Blake Murphy. San Diego State Aztecs edge rusher Trey White. Tulane Green Wave quarterback Braden Sullivan. UNLV running back Jaden Thomas. And Western Michigan Broncos running back Jalen Buckley. So I'm going to go through the three quarterbacks here with Maddox Madsen. Let's start this. Just to preface this, the reason I did the group of five is because it seems as though every so often we get a guy that gets to the Heisman ceremony. Obviously Ashton Jeanty did it last year. I remember Jordan Lynch did it at Northern Illinois not that long ago. I'm blanking on, I think it's Keenan Reynolds, the quarterback for Army was certainly in, or for Navy was certainly in discussion. Don't want to mix that up. I know back in the day, people talk a lot about running back Marshall Faulk at San Diego State. Like these players do present themselves, and it doesn't matter what level of competition they're at. If they're putting up numbers and they're kicking tail against their guys, that they should be recognized for that. I want to celebrate all of college football, not just the SEC, the Big Ten. But with Madsen here, I think he may be kind of like, you look at him, he's not really that impressive physically, but he's kind of been the straw that stirs the drink there for Boise State under Spencer Danielson. Yes, Ash Jeanty is a physical freak, going on to the NFL's number 6 overall pick by the Raiders. But Madsen was like not afraid of like a coaching change. If you saw Malachi Nelson come in, didn't care, beat him senselessly for that job. And I feel like, again, Kellen Moore had a little bit of this, but Kellen Moore was an absolutely special player for the Broncos back in the day. But Madsen just kind of, I feel like he gets more and more confident with every game. And until proven otherwise, I think Boise State's got to be the favorite to win the Mountain West and Group of Five again. And outside of, maybe Colorado State, UNLV, pick maybe another team in there. Maybe it's Fresno. I think that Boise State's kind of like got a pretty good shot of repeating in the Mountain West as well. But Madsen I just feel a level of calm with him. I'm going to move on down to Navy quarterback Blake Horvath. Navy is going to be in that group of teams about 5 in the group of 5. Like, okay, I seriously think they can win it. You pick a handful of teams that could check that box. That's your Boise's, that's your Tulanes, that's your Armies, Navies. Maybe the MAC has a team. Maybe it's JMU out of the Sun Belt. I don't know if the Conference USA's really got a team of that note. Well, I said Tulane, right? Memphis is another one as well. But Horvath, because he plays at Navy, because Navy's got to play big games versus Army, Notre Dame every year, and then you got conference play there in the American. Like, you rack up a bunch of wins with a quarterback for a service academy like this. More importantly, he was a Heisman kind of contender for a while there. Obviously, the midshipman season kind of sank in the latter part of November, but like he was kind of registering for that for a little while. So I think there was some name recognition for that. And yeah, we've seen Navy people win the Heisman, but like who alive remembers Roger Staubach winning it back in the 60s? But Blake Horvath, he's got kind of like a cool name, cool team. I can get behind that. But I talked about Malik Murphy at Oregon State. Again, why is he here? Maybe Manny Diaz is like, you know what, we really want Darian Mensah. I think he's better than you. So you need a transfer, bro. So this is a guy that was the backup to Quinn Ewers 2 years ago at Texas. Not Arch Manning. It was Malik Murphy. And he played very well at Duke last year. And I think the fact that Trent Bray was able to get him to come to Corvallis speaks volumes. Maybe the Beavers are going to be doing something interesting. Again, Murphy, Horvath, and Madsen were all listed at like plus 300, plus 30,000 odds or more. I think Malik Murphy's at 40,000 and same with Horvath as well. But I just think Murphy is going to be like probably the best player on the field every time he takes the field. I just think he's tremendously overqualified here. And there's a bunch of other guys I want to touch on here, but like for the sake of time and my health and just wanting to go to bed and stuff. Um, I'm gonna go with let's talk about Miami Redhawks quarterback Daquan Finn. He's not listed for the Heisman, but this is a guy that starred at Toledo, did tremendous things for Jason Kittle, dominated the MAC. Then he goes to Baylor, doesn't work out, but the fact that like he went there, he lost that to Sawyer Robertson, that guy maybe a guy to watch out for in the Big 12, if you will. But he goes back to his level of competition. Yes, he goes to a team that could potentially win the Group of Five. I like Miami probably more so than anybody else in that league. That league could be really good this year. But I also think you're playing for a head coach I have a lot of respect for with Chuck Martin. Might be my favorite coach in the Group of Five or in the MAC. One of my favorite ones in the Group of Five. My favorite one in the Group of Five is John Sumrall, which is why I'm bullish on Brendan Sullivan coming over from Iowa to replace TJ Finley, to replace Darian Mensah. Uh, I don't necessarily know how really good Brendan Sullivan is, but like that works. But I've just seen Quinn dominate at this level of college football in this conference before, so that's kind of where I'm at there with the Group of Five and the Heisman candidates there. So yeah, it's kind of been a fun thing to talk about in the offseason. Just thinking about maybe the most unrealistic thing that could happen that could actually might maybe happen. And I guess like to probably tie a bow on this, I'm going to move on to our next topic here with some do Haas or do Haas. Can a Group of Five star ever win the Heisman Trophy in the context of today's? Take a sip of water. I'll answer that here in a second. Very tough. And I thought a lot about this. I'm going to go do Haas two S's. And I just think that if it didn't happen last year with Ashton Jeanty, when's it going to happen? And again, I'm not a Heisman voter, but if I would have been a Heisman voter, I would have put Ashton Jeanty as my number one first place vote. I think it would have been Jeanty one, Travis Hunter two, and then I don't remember if it would have been Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward at three. I don't really remember or honestly care. Um, but when I look at the Group of Five, like you have to be, not only do you have to be great every single game, put up ridiculous numbers, but against the best competition, you have to punch up a little bit. And I know that Ginty looked good versus UNLV and Oregon, but like you have to absolutely shine in those big spots because other voters who don't know who you are going to just immediately discredit you. And look, I'm going to be very straight with you. I'm going to have a very hard time voting for somebody to have number one for the Heisman if their team's not a playoff team. Like, don't waste my time. I don't really yeah, I know I mentioned the whole 9-3, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like, no, give me the best player on a team that wins 10 or more games. Like, give me the best player on a team that wins, its conference, that gets a first round bye in this 12-team playoff. A guy who's just undeniably excellent. And I have no problem voting for guys in this hypothetical if I had a vote that aren't quarterback. Derrick Henry, I still would have voted him over Christian McCaffrey, also running back, but that doesn't matter. I was cool with Devontae Smith winning it in 2020 at wide receiver for Alabama. And I guess I'm okay with Travis Hunter winning it at Colorado as a two-way player. Again, I don't know, maybe I'm not the biggest fan of Travis Hunter's game. I kind of wonder how that's going to translate in the NFL, particularly, going to a dysfunctional organization like Jacksonville. Yeah, you think they're going to be able to figure out how to get him to play both ways? No. They can't even tie their own effing shoes. Almost swore there. But look, there have been other times where maybe a G5 guy should have won it, like 92. Because Miami was the U at that point, they gave it to Gino Torretta over Marshall Faulk and Garrison Hurst out of Georgia. Like Marshall Faulk went on, he's one of the most important running backs in football history. One of the ultimate guys who could do everything out of the backfield. My favorite running back of all time is LaDainian Tomlinson. And then Marshall Faulk was kind of the guy before that. It was like Roger Craig initially, then Marshall Faulk, then LaDainian Tomlinson, and there've been a boatload of other guys that have come along since. Bijan Robinson from my Atlanta Falcons. Definitely check out the Blog Dirty podcast. I think it's popping in real time. Had a great episode talked about how important Michael Penix Jr. is to the Falcons and them, raising their ceiling as a team. But it's Duhas 2S because like it has to be a perfect storm. And even if it is a perfect storm, like last year, like Boise State was a top four seed. They were not going to be the 12 seed. Like they even before reseeding, which we're not going to have to deal with that nonsense anymore, but like they were like a top 10 team the whole year, or they earned their way into that. And like Ginty, like phenomenal player. People know who Boise State is. Like if he can't do it, I don't think anybody can. And that pisses me off because I want to see people who are just undeniably great. A guy who's like a first ballot college football Hall of Famer, like he's in there 3 years after he hangs up the spikes in the NFL. Like we're talking that level of player. And the fact that like he couldn't do it because we had a guy that could play both ways who happened to be on Deion Sanders' team. Yes, Travis Hunter's immensely talented. Yes, he probably should have won the Heisman, but maybe I'm just being an ass about it. But like, look, if Ginty can't do it, I don't think anybody can. But I want to see it happen. More importantly, I want to see guys that have great seasons get honored. I want to see the Heisman Trophy ceremony be extended to 5 players. I want there to be 5 every year. And it doesn't matter if there's like an arbitrary cutoff of like, oh, this guy can't win. Like, get more people there, get more people out there, hear their stories. Like, this isn't that hard. Like, I don't want it to be like a stuffy event where we already know it's going to happen. Like, this needs to be fun. And I think making college football for everyone, which is what the show's about, believe it or not, like I can certainly, most certainly get behind it. So let's move on to the second half of our show here, and we're going to go on to some Pat the Doc. Yeah, talking more about the group of 5. I'm gonna try to like tie a bow on this or try to explain this. There was a cryptic social media post from a Texas State adjacent account about the Bobcats probably being the presumptive favorite to be the 8th football school in the new Pac-12. And Pete Thamel and Kyle Bonagura for ESPN. I read that name so many times and I don't know how to pronounce it. Kyle Bonagura, Pete Thamel. We know about Pete Thamel. Wrote about this for ESPN on the 15th. So there is an account that only had a handful of followers, but it's about like, propping up a star player on. So yeah, X account with 313 followers was promoting Texas State tailback Lincoln Pear for the Heisman Trophy. And this picture had, an Instagram story. So basically there was 2 beavers floating in the San Marcos River. And, it said in quotations, beavers and the San Marcos River. And I think the AD like liked it or quote tweeted it, or no, Texas State President Kelly Damphouse. There we go. That's basically what it is, and it says, oh, beavers in the San Marcos. So obviously, that's the town that Texas State's in. It's just south of Austin. Beavers, Oregon State Beavers. That's one of the 2 holdovers of the Pac-12, and Texas State would be a team that would be of intrigue for a team like the Pac-12 rebranding itself. So just so I'm going to make sure I get this perfectly right for you guys. So the Pac-12 that we knew, 10 of them left. You had Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA go to the Big Ten. You had 4 of them in Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. They went to the Big 12. Stanford and Cal went to the ACC for some reason. And then the 2 holdovers were Oregon State, the Oregon State Beavers, and the Washington State Cougars. Basically thought of like schools that just didn't generate enough revenue, but like are passionate enough to be major level athletics. So they went big game hunting, and they effectively poached 5 schools from the Mountain West. They all have state in it. So they're going to be joining the league, I believe, in 2 years or so after this upcoming season. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Utah State. Boise, Fresno were kind of like the big drivers out in that league. San Diego State, Colorado State are also like big brands as well. You're at you can make that work. And then they were looking for another one. They tried to go get Air Force. They tried to get like a couple of other schools. Utah State's ultimately what they settled on. And I think Gonzaga is going to be joining all other sports, but Gonzaga doesn't have a football team. And the significance is if you get 8 football teams and you have a conference championship, the playoff selection committee we'll validate that and we'll honor that. That will be in consideration for like, five best champions, if you will, that can make the playoff. And, they've been talking about trying to get some sort of TV negotiation rights and everything like that. I'm trying to find a partner. And again, maybe like, something will come before even they get that eighth football participant here. And but it's important basically to validate the conference for being. It would be simple if like, yeah, Gonzaga could get a football team. Well, they haven't had one in a very, very long time. But look, Texas State gets an opportunity to kind of get out of the Sun Belt of it all, maybe gets elevated a little bit to the Pac-12 conference. It's a conference full of a bunch of teams with state in it, so maybe they fit. But there's a couple of things to note here that I think Thamel Boganur Bonagura, I almost had that right. I'm never gonna get Kyle B. Yeah, we'll call him that. So it's the heavy favorite to join the Pac-12. And what you have to remember is today is June 18th. This will be going live on June 19th. There's not going to be anything formal with a bid or an invitation until July 1st. That's usually when these moves happen. That's when Missouri and Texas A&M joined the SEC back in 2012. Like that's kind of when it happens. That's when Houston and BYU and UCF and Cincinnati, they joined the Big 12 a couple years ago. Like that's when it happens. That's kind of when like the new academic calendar starts, if you will. We're wrapping up the College World Series right now. That's kind of like the last sporting event of the year. But like there'll be a formal invitation. There won't really be any red tape. It'll be kind of expedited, and I think that's what the ESPN article did a really great job of. So now that leads to believe if that opens up another wave of realignment, and it's not going to be very big, but there'll be a ripple effect. So obviously, if Texas State goes to the new Pac-12, that leaves a spot up in the Sun Belt, and Thamel and Kyle B basically said the team that's most likely to fill that spot would be Louisiana Tech. And they would leave Conference USA because they would have a lot more geographic rivalries here. Trying to think who that would be. Yeah, I'm trying to find this in the article here. So it would be attractive for them because they have rivalries with ULM, Louisiana, and Southern Miss. And they've got a strong baseball and softball program, but football program is not that great. I think there's also a chance that maybe Western Kentucky could potentially be a fit there. I feel like they're kind of too good for Conference USA, but we'll see. And if anybody leaves Conference USC, Tarleton State's probably a very good fit there. They out of Texas that they kind of want to move up. They may get an invitation. There's also the notion of Sacramento State that wants to move up as well without an invitation. I think that's going to get shut down. But like maybe Conference USA, again, it's covered the entire lower 48. Maybe they'll throw Sacramento State in there just for the sake of it. But like, again, I don't see that. But so it's looking like it's going to be Texas State going to go to the Pac-12. And if that happens, look for Louisiana Tech to go to the Sun Belt, and then look for Tarleton State to join FBS and be part of Conference USA. Again, we've got Delaware and Missouri State going up this year. We've seen Kennesaw State make the move up recently. So Conference USA is really adding teams here, kind of from an area of strength in a weird way. But yeah, that's kind of the notion here. I know I tried my best to try to explain what the hell is going on with this, but Texas State may start open another ripple effect because the new Pac-12 needs to get that eighth football team for them to have a conference champion of some level of a validation, if you will. So we're going to move on to our penultimate topic here with we do more than shoot hoops and turn left. We also leave being ADs. So Pete Thamel the Camel of ESPN reported that Jim Knowlton, the athletic director at Cal since 2018, he's retiring. And this is notable because, SMU, Cal, and Stanford, all schools that joined the ACC in the most recent wave of realignment, they don't have ADs anymore. I forget who the former AD was at SMU, but former Maryland AD and former Georgia AD, Damon Evans is going in there to Dallas to go for the Ponies. And then obviously Bernard Muir resigned at Stanford. They're still trying to figure that out. And they talked about this. I think Cal's going to follow a similar model that Stanford is, because of course they are, where like the new football general manager, Cal legend, former Panthers and Washington head coach Ron Rivera, he's going to be the boss of Cal football coach Justin Wilcox. Man, I hate it for Justin Wilcox. They're making his jobs. They're making his job so hard. Uh, Maybe if it doesn't work out, just go be the defensive coordinator for Oregon at your alma mater and make the Ducks good outside the ball. Not at all stay with that, or at least menacing or whatever. But like Stanford, you've got what Frank Reich reporting to Andrew Luck in a weird world that this is, and then obviously Rhett Lashley is reporting to Damon Evans there in SMU. Look, I think it's so fitting. This keeps happening. This happened with Kevin Warren, um, the former Big Ten commissioner, just leaves after all these schools come in from basically killing the Pac-12 to go be with the Bears. Mike Bohn is gone. I think there's a new AD at Arizona State as well. I don't know. Jim Cohen's at USC now. I just think like, why has it become such a trend where these athletic directors or personalities, or university presidents, league commissioners, like leave within like 48 months of like a huge controversial move? Like maybe that keeps them up at night. Maybe they can't handle it anymore. Maybe it's just like it eats at them. Maybe they accomplished all they want to do by creating chaos. They realize, oh my God, look at what I've done. And in reality, like they don't know. They just decide to be an agent of chaos here. But I guess to tie a bow on this with the three schools that joined the ACC, and Cal, Stanford, and SMU. SMU is going to always be in the best position of those three schools because they are closer to the ACC than the Bay Area schools. They're a team that wanted to move up. They're a team that wanted to go Power Five or Power Four desperately. And in their first year in the ACC, they played for a conference championship game and they made the playoff. Um, there's a lot of money to be had at SMU. They've got a fantastic football coach in Rhett Lashley. They've got a great quarterback in Kevin Jennings, who's got a lot of eligibility left. And even though Jim Irsay passed away, former Indianapolis Colts owner, like Indianapolis Colts owner, big booster at SMU, there's other ones to be had. Maybe Clark Hunt will invest in the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't know what he does. He besides just collect Super Bowl winning checks. But SMU, even though they forewent or foregone, or they are foregoing getting television revenue from the ACC for a couple more years, like they're going to be fine. It's a well-to-do private school that really wants to be taken seriously in athletics. They were always going to come out on top of this because they wanted to do this. Whereas then Cal and Stanford kind of move out of fear. And let me put it this way: Cal and Stanford have always had really good athletic programs. It's just like that's kind of more in the Olympic sports. We know about Cal rugby, we know about Stanford like swim and dive and things of that nature. But like when it comes to football and basketball, they've kind of been lagging. And you got to have the right guy in charge. You got to have the right person to galvanize it. Like, where's the Jeff Tedfords? Where's Jim Harbaugh? Where's an inspired David Shaw, if you will? Maybe Andrew Luck and Ron Rivera will be able to help that. I like Justin Wilcox as a coach. I don't know how much longer he's going to be at Cal. And then Frank Reich, he's clearly just an interim. And at this point, Andrew Luck's going to basically ask Tavita Pritchard or Troy Walters, hey, you want to come back to alma mater and coach this team? Like, yeah, maybe after the Commanders or Bengals season's done. But with Knowlton stepping down or retiring at Cal, kind of just it just makes that whole wave of realignment so weird. Like the ACC of it all, like with these like the two Bay Area schools going to the ACC, it's so strange. And I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for them to achieve all they can in this league. But like when your leadership one by one is just kind of not there anymore, and somebody else has to take this job, like it's not the same job from when Knowlton took over in 2018. Like Cal was a respectable Pac-12 school. Now it's a respectable ACC school, and that's fine. It's a great academic institution, good athletic program, has a lot of great players that play in all sorts of sports, but it's just a more challenging job than it ever has been. The one advantage they have is it's a public school, and I think that that can, basically encourages the Cal athletic programs. Like they can't be terrible forever. Like the regents won't allow that. Whereas if it's private, they can de-emphasize athletics. They can do whatever the hell they want. But with all three of those schools having new ADs in place, this upcoming year, we'll see what happens at Stanford. We'll see what happens at Cal. But like with Muir, with Knowlton, and I forget what SMU's former AD is, but like with them all leaving basically in the wake of these moves to the ACC, isn't that odd? And let's finish today with some good bull here. Let's do that. Came across another fun article there on ESPN. This is from Chris Lowe. So he identified college football's 10 most unbreakable records. And I'll list them off and I'll see if any of them can actually be broken. Oklahoma's 47 game winning streak. Barry Sanders' magical season. Florida State's top 5 finishes. Oklahoma's wishbone onslaught. Throwing it to the wrong team. Derek Thomas's sack parade. A hat trick for Antonio Perkins. Marcus Allen's amazing run. Patrick Mahomes' wizardry, and no upsetting Nick Saban. So I'm gonna go through. I'm just gonna work my way down and see if it's possible. Nobody's gonna snap Oklahoma's 47 game winning streak. The reason for this is because in the modern age of college football, where you have a playoff, you would basically need to, in an absolute worst case scenario, like you would need to like almost like three-peat as college football playoff national champions. And like you have to finish like at least one season on a 4 game winning streak, and then basically win what like I can't even do the math. Like, but you basically need to be perfect for 3 years in a row. And Georgia couldn't do that. Like Nick Saban's teams that never could do that. I just think that like the recruiting of it all, like you can't just stockpile talent like Oklahoma did, playing in the old Big Eight under Bud Wilkinson. It's just not possible. But I think you can win about like 20 something games in a row before it eventually dissolves on itself. But like um no one's ever beating that. Barry Sanders' magical season, I believe what Lowe was saying is probably the 238.9 rushing yards per game. And again, like he set a single season record of 2,628 rushing yards. And Ash Genty came within, I think, 27 yards of getting there. But Sanders did it in 11 games and Genty did it in 14. And keep in mind, Sanders' bowl game stats in 1988 didn't count. So that number would be 2,850 yards. I don't think it's possible really either because like the game's so passing centric. And also I think like if you're running the ball that much, that's either a really, really huge workload or your stat padding. And I think just the nature of like what we know about football in 2025 versus 1988, like that just they're not going to basically put that on somebody. It's hard to believe Barry Sanders did that for free. No wonder he retired after 2 years with the Lions. That's not happening. Florida State's top 5 finishes. I believe from 1987 to 2000, they finished in the top 5 of the AP poll every year. I'm going to say that's not impossible, but very improbable. Because what you're essentially implying is, 14 straight years of top 5 finishes. Chris Lowe pointed out that the Pete Carroll USA Trojans did it for 7 years in a row. Same with Bud Wilkinson, Oklahoma. Nick Saban only had 5 seasons in a row where his team was top 5. And that was from 14 to 18. And I'm looking at this, and I don't know if it's going to be Georgia that could do it. Maybe Ohio State could, but you would need to be a program like Georgia, Ohio State, or Texas. Somebody of that level, that's just that level of blue blood that recruits that level. That's not dealing with the academic restrictions of some other schools. And even like a down year, like Georgia, like top 6, they were 6th. Like that doesn't quite get there. You basically have to get to the Final Four every single year. You have to make the playoff every year. You have to be playing for a national semifinal. And I think in this day and age, like that's too much of an ask. there will be recruiting classes that don't pan out. There may be down years in the cycle. There may be other up years for other teams. It's the same sort of thing. Like no one's going to win 14 straight division titles in baseball like the Atlanta Braves did from 91 to 05. Just not happening. The Yankees came close, but like there's just a little bit too much parity in the sport. You have to have certain things go your way, like the 94 strike that prevented the Expos from winning that in the NL East that year. Um, you have to have a perfect storm for it to happen. So that's it's not improbable. It's not likely, but it's highly improbable. As far as Oklahoma's wishbone offense, the onslaught, and everything like that, like we're talking about a team averaging 472.4 rushing yards per game. Um, the only way you can do that is if it's a service academy running a triple option. They're just damn good. And I think even in this day and age, like it's so passing centric, and people want to throw the ball. Like even then, like Army or Navy or Air Force, there's gonna be some like throwing the ball to catch people off guard, and you got to sustain that high of a level. And maybe it could, but like maybe the threshold's like 350 yards. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting tired. 350 yards rushing a game. I just don't feel like you're going to have like the talent that Oklahoma had, the innovative offense, the wishbone at the time, and just the era of football. I don't see that happening either. Throwing it to the wrong team. Florida quarterback John Reeves apparently threw 9 interceptions on 66 passing attempts and a 38-12 loss for the Gators to Auburn in 1969. Um, I I feel as though like nine interceptions in the game, like by that point you get pulled. The coaches, like this is someone's son. Like if he's getting his ass kicked and he's throwing like 4 or 5 picks, he's gonna ride behind. I mean McCord, like Kyle McCord still need to throw a few more interceptions versus Pittsburgh last year. Didn't do it. And I just don't think that like optically it would just look that terrible to put somebody out there. And even in that situation, um like there's not going to be that many possessions throwing the ball. You may do stuff to be a little more conservative to kind of save face. Again, I don't see that happening either. Um, Derek Thomas's sack parade. I think he had 27 sacks in a season to earn the SEC Defensive Player of the Year honors in 1988. And he did this in 11 games. And the last for the record, like last year's sack leader, Mike Green at Marshall had 17. And again, Derek Thomas was a truly special player, one of one. That's why he's an Alabama and Chiefs legend, rest in peace. Um, again, like there's just too many good recruits, too many good offensive linemen, better scheme. Like if there's a guy who's like eating your lunch, it keeps getting a bunch of sacks, like they'll triple team him. Like I don't know if there's like a Derek Thomas or like a Lawrence Taylor out there. Like there's nobody that really does that in college football anymore. To do that in like 11 games is utterly insane. That's not happening either. And then we're kind of getting the ones like, okay, hat trick for Antonio Perkins, 3 punt returns. Yeah, that's not happening. We're getting down to the two that I think could actually be broken, and then one that probably won't. But the two that I think could be would be Marcus Allen's amazing run and Patrick Mahomes' wizardry. And I don't think it's going to be Nick Saban not getting upset. And I'll say why it's not going to be Nick Saban getting upset because I think when he was favored at Alabama, he won 100 consecutive games against unranked foes, and he went 14 games without losing a game to an unranked opponent. Maybe I think he lost to like what A&M in 2021, but like 104 wins. I'm just skimming through this. The point is like you again you have to be that dominant. You have to be able to instill that level of fear. Maybe Georgia, maybe Texas, maybe Ohio State when they're fired off cylinders can do it, but like they can maybe not. Just like the length of it all, having the same, it's got to be the same head coach. You got to do it for like 15 years. It's possible, but I don't think so. And I'll go to the two that I think could be broken. I'm going to start with Patrick Mahomes' wizardry. So back in what year would that have been? In 2016, he faced Baker Mayfield, Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Ironically enough, Baker Mayfield briefly played at Texas Tech. Um, it was just the epitome of a Big 12 pillow fight. Mahomes set an FBS record of 119 yards of total offense. He completed 52 of 88 passes for 734 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also rushed the ball for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I believe that Oklahoma won that game, 66-59. God, imagine losing that. And at Mayfield, he only threw for 545 yards at this point. You got to basically, it's like you got to have like the reason I think it could happen is like, let's say, for example, Texas Tech plays Washington State, like two teams that are well entrenched in the air raid, two teams that, like have had Mike Leach presence. We're like, let's not throw the football. Let's not run the football. That's stupid. Just pass on every single play. You gotta have teams that play no defense. You gotta score in the 70s. I think there's a chance that, like, you will have like a generational talent maybe there. I don't think the next Patrick Mahomes is going to end up in Lubbock anytime soon, but like, I mean, there could be a player that emerges somewhere. Like, it'd have to be a perfect storm, but like, yeah, I think it could happen because for as unique and interesting as that game was, it didn't necessarily feel like it was going to be like singular. Like we may see something like that in 20 years or so. Maybe the game will evolve even more so to afford that to happen. But someone could break Mahomes' record, and maybe if they do, maybe they'll win. That'd be pretty good in a high score shootout. But the one that I think could actually get broken here, that I don't necessarily agree with Chris Lowe on all of this, is Marcus Allen's amazing running. He has this listed as the eighth most unbreakable record. He said that Marcus Allen, trying to think, basically what he did in 81. So he rushed for 200 yards 8 times, 11 games. Sanders did Bear Sanders did it 7 times in 88. And I think like really so the 5 200-yard games, I think that's very feasible. And that's not really like, that's not even the most impressive part about this, but like you could argue that Marcus Allen's the most accomplished player in football ever. Lowe points out that he's the only guy to win a national championship, a Heisman Trophy, Super Bowl MVP, and NFL MVP award. Also being a pro and college football Hall of Famer. And look, there could be somebody like who's next combination of Ashton Jeanty and Derrick Henry out there. There could be a guy out there like Lamar Jackson who could basically achieve all these things. I don't think it's that unique, and I think like, maybe that's why Allen wanted going away in 81 for the Trojans and everything like that. But it doesn't seem that unrealistic, and I think it has to kind of be like you gotta have like the right player in the right system. Like if it's a Saquon Barkley type of talent, if it's a Bijan Robinson just has a crazy year like that. There are running backs out there that I think could get 5 200-yard rushing games in a row. Particularly like if they're in an option office. Again, that talent's not going to go to an option school, but I think that's within the realm of possibility. So Chris Lowe is right. A lot of these records are not going to be broken. I think the Marcus Allen one's the most likely to be broken. Yeah. This was episode 185 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow my absent-minded, absent co-host, Cody Williams, at the Cecil20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Anywhere there's podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Be sure to hit the like button like you're hitting the Gap. Be sure to smash the subscribe button like you're making a smash burger. I don't know. I gotta find a better way to do that. That's Cody's job, not mine. But yeah, like again, like False Start finds a way. Even if there's like technological things that get in the way, in the wonderful state of New Mexico, they may be 51st in education, they might be 50th in laptops. But Cody, for all I know, is going to be on the show on Monday's show. We're going to probably do some Toto for some JLN. Maybe we could talk about something else. But yeah, be unbreakable. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is False Start.